Even if most products get forgotten by the media after the review period is done, there are a few that stand out. Gadgets that people still ask about months later. Some that we even decide to hold on to as daily drivers, and that we get to see age over time. The Galaxy Z Fold5 is one of them. The king of foldables is already due for a refresh, so if you're wondering if it's still worth considering nearly a year later, this video is for you. I know, I also missed the classic After the Buzz intro. I'm Jaime Rivera with Pocketnow, and it's time for another episode. I think the case for the Galaxy Z Fold5 was probably a bit unfair. I actually filmed a comparison with the Z Fold 4, but I never ended up publishing it. The amount of differences between them were so minor that I realized there was no value in the video. It was a Z Fold 4 with a better hinge, a better chip, and that was it. At the time of its launch, this almost felt like necessary iteration, almost like a plan B for something better that just wasn't ready. I did learn a ton from that trip to Korea though. It was cool to see that every single design wish we've ever had for the Fold had already been tried. From the built-in S Pen to a wider outer screen, I got the chance to hold everything, and yeah, it helped me understand how the company landed on the design we currently have. Meeting Huey Lee in person was a treat, as I've always been a fan of his work since his time at Mercedes. Yes, it did get me excited for where he would steer Samsung's mobile design, but keep in mind, he had barely been appointed as design EVP 6 months before that meeting, and some of the mobile designs you have in your pocket can take up to 3 years to plan. If the first Galaxy Fold took even longer than that, it was clear that Lee's imprint would take more time. Now, the reason I call our view of the Z Fold 5 is unfair is because I'd say that this is the Galaxy Fold that has aged best, and this is in both hardware and software. Sure, making a flush hinge wasn't a big deal and pretty late to the game, but this phone has been in my pocket for most of the year and the hinge makes absolutely zero noises, which was not the case before. Yes, the new hinge didn't fix the crease, but it did fix the lint that would build up in between, which reduces the opportunity for failure. I haven't dropped this phone, so the rest of the chassis is in pristine condition, even if I wouldn't say the S Pen cases have aged well. I wish Samsung made a vegan leather version of these for them not to pick up the discoloration of your clothing. Sadly, this phone's design just yells for a case no matter what, as its narrow design and protruding camera hump are not at all flat on a table. Call me an oddball though, but the fact that this phone was so narrow is what made it invaluable to use on the go. We don't always need a large screen, and especially not when we commute. This phone made it crazy easy for me to respond to messages while walking, even if, sure, it wasn't necessarily the most readable experience, so a bit of extra width would have been welcomed. I think I've spent most of my time using this phone in two major cases. As my e-reader, since it's great to have one device that does multiple things really well, and second, as my work phone. As such, this is the device I use to read and respond to emails or go through my calendar and notes of the day. It's even the device I pair with my favorite Bluetooth keyboard from like 2007 in order to write scripts. Seriously, can somebody just make something better already? Like, trust me, I've tried them all. Still, I have to say that as a productivity device, this product is great, at least for the most part. One thing I can't stress enough is just how great it is to use this inner display. A year later, and I can tell you not all foldables get this right. Samsung has done an outstanding job for years in giving us great color saturation and detail, with the added perk that somehow you can use an S Pen on this surface and not damage it one bit a year later. Regardless if I use this phone for work or play, the viewing experience along with the dual firing speakers were always a great combo.
Got the latest Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy powering the show on.
The second reason why I feel our view is unfair is because this is the first time I see Samsung go all out in supporting an older phone with new software perks. Pretty much all the Galaxy AI features we saw reach the Galaxy S24 Ultra earlier this year got to this phone about 2 months later. So yeah, if you're a fan of Circle to Search, it's here, though if I'm honest, it's probably one of the few things I'd recommend. The second thing I've used a lot is audio recording transcriptions, even if I do wish these happened live like they do on a Pixel, and not after the fact. As for the rest, well, I haven't used Chat Assist since I'm not a fan of the Samsung keyboard's multilingual support, and I usually stick to chat apps like WhatsApp or Telegram. Then Live Translate and Call Assist seem like a pretty nice idea in theory, but my testing only proved these are reliable for English speakers, and not for those who are listening to you on the other end. Regardless, kudos to Samsung for upgrading this phone to One UI 6.1 so quick. Hopefully these services get better over time, because I still feel this is the best user interface for foldable. From quick access to apps from the bottom drawer, to the side menus, to the density of the icons, this continues to be my favorite way to interact with Android. Over the course of most of the last 12 months, my experience using this phone was good. I think internals contributed a lot, as this Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 is still class-leading even today. This phone has more than enough RAM and base storage for it to be reliable, and its efficiencies matched with the large power pack have made this an all-day phone every single time. From breezing through menus on the day-to-day to the clarity of phone calls, which are especially easy on this form factor to hold the phone, to its reliability on mobile data and Wi-Fi in different parts of the world, this phone felt like a flagship in every way. But alright, I know you're waiting for it. Obviously, I never call this phone perfect, but sadly for this particular iteration, it had mostly to do with competition. I think the launch of the Pixel Fold didn't make a dent. That phone has a ton of quirks of its own that Samsung has already graduated from. The OnePlus Open did make switching very tempting because I think there was a far better approach to the form factor, but to be honest, my need for the S Pen made me stick to Samsung. Not sure why OnePlus doesn't simply launch a variant of the Oppo Pen, because the OnePlus Open does support a stylus. My problem was a trip to Leipzig, Germany, and my first experience with the Honor Porsche Design Magic V2 RSR. I know, longest name ever. But listen guys, I'm not telling you that any phone over $2,000 is worth it. Heck, I even have a problem with recommending the Z Fold 5 to anyone unless you can grab a good deal for a trade-in. The thing is, Honor's engineering is so ahead of its time that I simply could not go back to the Galaxy. For the first time in the last 4 years, the foldable in my pocket was no longer a Z Fold. And listen, I'm not saying the Porsche design is better. Heck, Honor could really benefit from either Samsung or OnePlus's experience when it comes to the software front, but then it gets everything else right. The design is far slimmer and lighter. This allows for weight to no longer be a constraint in giving you the wider screen on the outside, which only gives you a larger inner screen. The Honor Pen included in the box is then just as good or better than the S Pen. Seriously, Honor's alternative feels like a regular phone that doesn't need to be opened, when with the Samsung, the experience is the complete opposite. And sure, you could say there's a huge price difference, but just get the regular Honor Magic V2, which is 99% the same phone for a lot less money. Don't even get me started about their camera differences. Not sure if you noticed, but I haven't even began talking about photography. The reality is that I've barely used this phone for photos because they're not better in anything. The spec sheet on these cameras doesn't really justify the massive camera hump, as these cameras are really generations old. In Samsung's defense, every new chip brings a better ISP for better processing, which I feel has helped me see a change, but not much. If I'm fair, photos are pretty good during the day regardless of which focal length you pick, and even when the lights get dark, the device does hold its own even if it takes a little more time than every other phone. I did see some struggle with selfies and dynamic range, or if anything inconsistencies, but nothing to really call them terrible. You've got all the typical Samsung video capabilities, which I always tell you aren't class leading but not bad either. My problem really is that there is no difference between the results from this phone and a base Galaxy S23 from last year, and yet nearly $1,000 in price difference. That's about the only reason where all my unfair arguments actually ended up being fair, as the experience of paying more for this phone should be reflected in the function, not just the form. To conclude, I think you understand where I'm going. I'm a firm believer in the Galaxy Z Fold. I praise Samsung for sticking to their guns and supporting this form factor, even when competitors like OnePlus are reportedly not launching another foldable, at least for later this year. Listen, making great foldables is hard, and I can understand all the difficulties there are in improving this form factor dramatically year over year. The problem is that this phone is no longer alone in the West. Competition from China has truly made the complexities in building this Galaxy Z Fold5 harder and harder to justify. We're at a point in the United States where if you were to ask me which foldable I'd recommend right now, I'd say OnePlus Open. If you were in Europe, I'd say Honor Magic V2. As much as I've loved the Galaxy Z Fold for so many years, I believe this lineup finally reached the stage where tough love is necessary, and the reality is that at this price point, no phone needs an upgrade more than this one. If you're a Galaxy fan, I'd say skip this one regardless of the deals, and just wait it out for the next Galaxy Unpacked that should be happening over the next month or so if history serves as an indicator. Hopefully we get more than just the unnecessary titanium build, because at this price, form matters, literally, just as much as function. Let me know if you agree with our assessment in the comments down below, and while you're at it, follow us on social media and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one. You can also follow me on my personal handles to see me want to love this phone more than ever. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like what you saw. I'm Jaime Rivera, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.